Hello and welcome back at video 3 of our explanatory videos on how we're going to use the FarmingTree framework to work for us in the Pathways project. How to get a view on the storylines with farming systems. Farming systems, we have 30 plus of them identified within the context of the Farm Pathway project. And these 30 plus are kind of farming strategies or farming business strategies. The idea we have now in this is that in your workshop, you're going to identify, define how a specific farming system would look like, feel when you would visit a typical farm for that farming system. And when you come together to a picture of this farm will be kind of representative, like say an average farm that you're going to use in your workshop. And obviously, naturally, there is a broad diversity that we are going to very abruptly kind of ignore. Yet this is needed because we need to look at it from a broad, more abstract perspective to get a view on how can we compare these farming systems in relation to these policy changes. We really would like to compare the differences in the farming systems over the countries, and we believe we can do so. So there are 5 storylines developed in the Pathway project. Efficiency first. That's where the policy and economic developments kind of dictate to the farmers, listen up, there's one thing that counts, as much for as little as possible. So optimizing efficiency, tech innovations, industrial ecology, monogastric, that's going to be more kilograms in the shorter term, waste reduction, and that is the efficiency first program, policy storyline. Rural Renaissance actually says we have to look more at the localized production systems, reward ecosystem services, diversifying systems, promoting local and more conscious consumption. Feed No Food is actually specifically looking at how can we cut feed food competition, where we kind of are in competition with our cattle or our pigs with the same foodstuff that we could eat, or we feed it to them. So maybe use more byproducts. Maybe we need to use land more for human foods. Those kind of thoughts. You can all find it more in the brochures. High animal welfare. What if we, as a continent, would say animal welfare has to be maximized? What would that mean for our farming systems? Livestock free, that's obviously a very tense one for the livestock farmers. But what if we would decide to phase out livestock farming, and how would that mean? What would that mean for our landscape and our systems? So now how to use the FarmingTree framework to assess those differences? Well, we need to get back to, for each theme of the 16 themes, there is a core sentence defined. What is the theme about? Why is it relevant? Then the direction is set for each theme. If you develop a farm for this theme to its full potential, what would it then look like? And what kind of actions or adjustments on farm level will support you moving into that direction for that specific theme? So in that way, you can kind of envision that each farming system for all of those 16 themes combined gets a specific view on how the farming tree will look like. And it will reflect that specific farm strategy. And this is done by envisioning how a typical farm for this strategy would look like. And you are selected in this workshop because you kind of and have a total expert judgment. You can envision together how it would be like to visit such a farm and to assess this specific farm for these themes for the farming tree. And we can do so now for the basic level of each farming system as it is now, current conditions. And then we could say, okay, so this is the farming tree for current conditions. What if we have storyline 1, storyline 2, 3, 4, and 5? And each time we go to the same farm, how would it develop under this storyline? And get our scores for that one based on our own expert judgment. This will allow us to make comparison. So, what will be done in this next workshop? First now, we're going to look at intensive systems in dairy based on green maize and or temporary grassland. That will be the farming context for our first workshop, testing our methodology. Specifically looking at dairy and beef cattle within your geographic location. So now the thing is that how to create, as a small group, expert judgment view, a shared consensus view on this specific farming system. Kind of typify the context of this farm. Use this shared view to assess the farming tree themes. And now the challenge is avoid being too precise and too concrete. You have to take a step back, look at it from a more abstract level. How would this mean? Would the score go up or down? How does it look like for this specific farming system? And we give you a format in which you can fill in the specific scores for the basic level of that specific farming system. Add a brief argumentation why you think this score is the best score to represent the farm and how it develops for that specific farming system. Then for each of the 5 storylines, you can together discuss, okay, so for storyline 1, 2, 3, or 5, what would be the effect of this storyline on our average representative farm? What will happen? How will the farmer develop? How will the production system develop? The economic conditions? How will the farmer again optimize production? Creating a shared expert judgment view on that for each of the 5 storylines, you can now fill in the scores for again each of the themes that you've had in the first one, the basic level, and say, okay, so how would that change given this policy this storyline is being developed? Again, add a brief argumentation for this. In case a certain theme you feel like we bump into hurdles, we just cannot come to a really shared view on this. That's okay, that happens in life. Please explain shortly what is the tension that you feel is existing within this. For the data collection, please scan the complete forms, send them as a digital version to Michiel Klaassen and Ingemaatje Pieneman. You have here the email addresses, and they will be happy to support you as well with working in this. So we've now come to the end of our 3rd video, FarmingTree as a tool in the Pathways project. Thank you.